My son had a stroke before he was even born. I didn't even know at the time that kids could have strokes, let alone babies, let alone unborn babies, but they can. And we didn't find out right away. In fact, we didn't find out he had experienced a stroke until after his first birthday. We went through this whole period of time not knowing why our son was physically delayed in certain areas, and it was so frustrating. It was a normal pregnancy. It was a normal labor, delivery. At the hospital when he was born, he passed all those newborn baby tests, and we got to take him home 2 days after he was born. Everything seemed normal. It wasn't until he started getting older and we noticed certain things just didn't seem quite right. His right hand, he always kept it fisted and never really opened it up. But his left hand, he would open it up all the time. When he got to the point where he would start grabbing at things, he was only ever grabbing with the left hand and never with the right hand. And we didn't understand why. When he was learning to crawl, he was doing a one-armed army crawl, and the right arm was just kind of dragging along behind him. And so many people said, "Oh, he'll get there. Oh, he's just left-handed." And I felt kind of brushed off. I felt like some people weren't taking me seriously when I was expressing my concerns about him. And finally, we brought it up with his pediatrician, and he referred us to a neurologist. And then the neurologist said we need an MRI. We got the MRI, and then the results finally came back to reveal that he had had a stroke. But it took so long because getting an appointment with a pediatric neurologist is hard, at least in our area. And scheduling an MRI and everything just took forever. And if you know about babies, they develop so much in that first year of life. So it's hard. And I can explain more about it if anyone's curious. I can do another video. But the reason I made this was just to let you know that strokes can happen at any age. And I just wanted to raise awareness of that. If you think something is wrong with your child, advocate for them. If you don't, who will? I didn't trust my gut right away when my son was a baby, and I thought he might be delayed, because well-meaning people said, "Don't worry, he's fine. Everyone develops differently." But to me, it was like they were saying, "Don't trust your instincts. You don't know what you're talking about." And this was my first child, so I listened to other people more than trusting myself. People, anyone. If someone comes to you expressing concerns about their child, listen to them, rather than trying to assure them that everything's fine. You don't actually know that everything's fine. Let a professional tell them that everything is fine. My son will never fully recover from the stroke that he had as a baby. But because of physical and occupational therapy, most strangers looking at him on the street would have no idea that anything's wrong with him. They'd think he's just a regular kid. But it's taken a lot of work to get him to where he is today. So trusting my instincts eventually and speaking up for him was very important. And so I just want to say to all of you parents out there, speak up for your kids. If your child uses any kinds of splints, braces, casts, AFOs, orthotics, things like that, and they outgrow them, instead of throwing them away, put them on their stuffed animals, toys, action figures, dolls, things like that. It makes them more relatable, something that the child realizes other people can be like them too, and they're not alone in the world. Follow me if this kind of video is helpful for you. I am not a medical professional, but I am going to talk about seizures today, just from my experience as a mom. My son was 3 years old when he had his first seizure, or at least the first one we knew about. And so far that's been the only one he's had now that it's controlled by medication. But the terrifying thing was it started while he was asleep in the early morning. So we do not know how long it lasted. It was actually on Halloween morning. The toddlers were awake already, and we were just letting him sleep in. We thought our son was sleeping in. And then my husband decided to check on him, thank God, because I keep running through my mind, what if he hadn't checked on him? How long would the seizure have lasted? And would it have somehow killed him? And he was trembling violently, shaking all over. It was a grand mal seizure. And he called me up to our son's room, told me to stay with him while he got ready to drive him to the hospital. It is the most terrifying thing to see something like that happening to your child. But I stroked his head and I talked to him, and I was trying to be very calm and reassuring while also crying. And he rushed him off to the hospital, and the seizure was still happening when he arrived at the hospital. They gave him some kind of injection thing to stop the seizure, and it didn't stop, so they had to give him a second dose before it finally stopped. And the reason he had the seizure is because when he was a baby, he had had a stroke. And if you've had a stroke, you're more likely to have a seizure. And man, he was crabby at the hospital. He was not in a good mood. I mean, who would be after having an awful seizure? But be aware that seizures can happen. Don't be scared though. Remain calm. If they are the first seizure that your child has ever had, go ahead and get them to a hospital. I can share more about experiences if you want. Comment if you have any questions. Have a good day.